Hi guys. H_Fox12, nice number, dude. Wants to know, does your arm ever hurt or get sore? What do you do for it? I get so many questions. I throw a lot, guys. That's a whole nother. I think I do have a segment on that, why I throw so much. But does my arm ever hurt or get sore? So hurt, yes, twice, 2 times in my entire journey career. 2016, big league camp, bone spurs, elbow. It was the day where I was like, ow, hurt. Yes, hurt. Surgery, now, boom, got it. 2018, second time. 1 pitch, lat, torn. Hurt, ow, frick. 2 times in my entire journey where I was like, yeah, my arm hurts. Sore, yes. I use soreness. I have a really good idea of like distinguishing between soreness, pain, discomfort, stabby, achy, doley, pinchy, pulley, all these kind of concepts. I worked with Dr. Heenan for a year and change, and that was one of the biggest things was every single day kind of asking that question. I use soreness as a gauge on throwing volume, training regimen, basically just, volume in general of daily activity. But I actually like soreness. Like if I throw, especially right now that it's the quote unquote off season and I'm in kind of a 2022 season preparation mode. If I am not sore a little bit at the end of my throwing session, then I feel as if I didn't do enough. I didn't do as much. Now that's gonna vary, and I don't say that to encourage people to get to that point because it's going to be different for everyone. I just know personally through years and years of trial and error and just being diligent and intentional with this process, like I know that my arm responds better to more load than less. And I, obviously you age and you get older and, you lose testosterone and the healing factors and the muscles get weaker, science, and that's going to change obviously, but I put a lot of emphasis in how I prepare for that. But like I said, yeah, I use soreness as kind of a gauge. What do I do for it? Soreness, I throw, and again, I know it's easier said than done to get to that point of understanding what you kind of need, what stimulus you need, but it's true for me that like I said, I feel better when I throw more, and I actually feel worse when I throw less, like when I kind of hit the brake pedals. Like right now, I'm kind of in a deload phase right now, and I don't feel as good. So what do I do for it? If I'm feeling really, really, really sore and it's in season and I need like some recovery stuff like ASAP, then I guess I will like a Mark Pro, some grafting, scraping, soft tissue massaging. But I have a whole thing on my recovery protocols that I use, and it's more of a preparation and recovery protocols you can check out on my website to get a full picture of what this looks like. But I put such a big emphasis on my preparation and my recovery that, it kind of takes care of itself. I think, and I've said this multiple times, I feel like everyone tries to recover when it's already too late. A good preparation is recovery too. So, doing things like just simple as sleeping enough, eating right, moving enough, avoiding long periods of sitting down, getting sunlight, earthing, connecting to the earth. For me, I sauna, cold tank, all these kind of things. So what I do for it is basically what I do every single day, so hopefully that helps. Good question. Andrew_Patino_ wants to know, how do you break down the batter's movements and make it translate to your next pitch? This is a really good question, and I love talking about this. This kind of goes under the umbrella of like pitch sequencing and identifying hitters' weaknesses and strengths and so on and so forth. But this is something that I got really into in like 2013, where I was super attentive to every single movement that the batter was giving, because the batter, he will present a lot of information, whether it be previous at bats or whether it be the at bat that you are facing him in. They'll give you a lot of good insight to how to attack them. But here's my encouragement with that, and I'll actually answer the question too. But here's my encouragement with diving too much into this: is understand the fine line, understand how much process or how much input you can process while still competing and being free. Because for me, I felt that I was putting too much emphasis on like what the hitter was telling me, and it was kind of taking away that my personal strength and what made me good. That I was trying to then pitch to, he showed me that he's got a really long swing on that foul ball with that changeup down and away. So now I'm going to go fastball glove side or fastball in, elevated in. And at the time, maybe it's not like, that's like my seventh best pitch. So be careful with that. But how do you break down the batter's movements and make it translate to your next pitch? So I always kind of look at hand positioning, and you can see that from the setup for the hitter. Hand positioning can give you a pretty good indication of what he's trying to do. I would always look at like the tempo in which he's establishing early on. Is he a rhythm guy? Is he a toe tap guy? That's gonna then maybe influence me to want to change up my tempo, even like just, getting the sign. If he's a big movement guy and trying to just disrupt his timing and get him a little bit uncomfortable. Seeing how he, reacts to certain pitches early in counts, late in counts, when he's ahead in the count, when he's behind in the count, breaking balls behind in the count, breaking balls ahead of the count, fastballs behind in the count, fastballs ahead of the count. All of these things, your body language kind of can give you a pretty good idea of, is he a guess hitter? Is he sitting on something? Is he just reacting? Was he trying to do? Is he trying to yank, pull? Where's his power at? Is he trying to see the ball deep? There's so many freaking layers to this. And this is a whole testament to why I think freaking watching a baseball game is so enlightening, because there's so much of this going on. And I would love to commentate a game. I might look into that now that I'm like kind of fired up. Might commentate a game and literally just break down like each individual millisecond and what's potentially occurring all throughout the field. How dope would that be? But those are some of the things that I'm looking for. Like I said, where's his feet in relation to where home plate is? What is his front foot doing in terms of toe tap load? Leg kick load. Is he diving towards the plate? Is he bailing? All of these kind of indications of, what makes him, and how I can then kind of attack that with my strengths, not getting too far away from what makes me good out there, but just kind of using that information he's giving me, to sequence. Like if he's bailing out with his lead foot, he's going to be more prone to swing and miss or give up on things that are starting as a ball, ending as a strike. If he's diving towards home plate, or if he's lunging towards me, and you'll see this a lot with hitters, is when they're struggling, they'll get over anxious and they'll actually, kind of start diving to the ball, trying to go get it. And that's obviously when you want to stay hard, elevated into the hands. Long swings, you want to crowd him, don't want to utilize his leverage. Usually that's with bigger guys. Short, compact guys, probably most of the time that I've experienced, want the ball up. But yeah, there's a whole lot there. I might do a whole segment on literally the specifics of that. That'd be crazy. Good question though. Arlen_Peters10 wants to know, what do you do to help maintain velo throughout your start? Biggest thing out of this question, Arlen, is maintaining velo throughout a start isn't something that is done in the start itself, right? Like, it's not a conscious thing, in my opinion, that has to be changed or manipulated or even just amplified during the start. Like, you're going to be on the gas pedal the entire time, right? When you're in the game, when you're performing. Maintaining velo throughout a start is the preparation aspect of it. Preparation, recovery, making sure you're doing the right things leading up into that day. Recovering from really good sleep, nutrition. There's so many layers to that aren't necessarily in the actual day of the game. And I think that's what gets often overlooked with baseball performance is we always look at like, oh, we want the best recovery. What do we have to do after we throw? Like, no, that's not how it works, right? Everyone wants to, throw hard. Oh, what do I have to do before I have a velo day? Like, no, it's everything that leads up to it. That's why this game at the highest level is so difficult, because it's a sacrifice every single hour of every single day. And every decision you make is influencing the goal, your goal. So what do you do to help maintain velo throughout your start? I live and breathe this game and performing. So every decision that I make is hopefully moving the needle in the best direction possible to have success. And I think velocity and success are correlated. So with maintaining velo, the conditioning of it, strength training of it, the throwing volume leading up into that day is on point. I think there's another big disconnect that I see, and rightfully so, because we live in this society or this industry now within baseball where everyone's getting surgery, at a young age, and everyone's throwing harder. So the, whatever is occurring. So there's this brake pedal approach on development, especially when it comes to overhand throwing. And then they go into a start and you're expected to throw 6-7 innings in high school or college. And it's like, well, my throwing volume up until that day, it was like 10 minutes long, because I wanted to preserve my energy. But you haven't developed a foundation yet. Like that has to be built up. So hopefully you got something from that, but that's a good question. Remember, big picture, delayed gratification, not instant gratification. Okay. Oscar VM wants to know, do you had, okay, I'm going to go with the interpretation that I came from this. Did you have any psychological issues while throwing, again, from an injury? I thought I was. So in 2016, I had the bone spurs in my elbow. That was my first ever surgery. I spent the first 5 years of my career, like, no injuries. And then had the bone spurs. Coming back from that, I would say a little bit, but the understanding behind the surgery itself, that it wasn't like a major surgery, I think helped. But then I had a setback in rehab for some reason. I never regained full elbow extension. And that's where I started having some psychological issues, because I was like, well, I'm never going to get this back. I have to relearn how to throw again, because you're not extending your elbow fully. So you have to internally rotate your shoulder earlier. And it was a crazy process that took me a while to kind of really hammer down. But I was just continuously telling myself, and this is just a mantra that I kind of live by, is control what you control, man. Put in the work, prepare. And I sound like a broken record, I'm sure. Everyone is always like, yeah, he's doing his thing again. All right. But control what you can control, in the sense of, like, it frees your mind. I'm going to put in as much smart, hard work as I physically and mentally can. And then at the end of the day, like, let the chips fall. Like, I've done what I needed to do to put myself in the best possible position to feel good, perform well. And if it doesn't work out, like, then it doesn't work out. I've had big time issues when I've tried to control things that are beyond my control, and it does me no good to do that. And I know it's easier said than done, but there's truth to it. So, and then in 2018 with the lat, that was more just physical than it was psychological. It was a point in my career where, obviously packed with frustration, but it was just like, look, if this thing doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I can look at myself in the mirror at the end of this journey and be like, yeah, you did everything you needed to do, man. You didn't take much shortcuts. You enjoyed it. You loved it. I can rest. And that's kind of something that, goes along with, I think, the rehab process in general. I think the opposite, the flip side of that, when you really start to struggle mentally, I think comes from the expectation of things to go smoothly when the work is minimal. So control what you can control. Be able to look yourself in the mirror at the end of this journey and be like, yeah, I did everything I needed to do. Because psychologically, I think subconsciously, like you're always going to know when you take shortcuts and when you don't put in the work. And that's going to be the piece that eats at you when the journey is over. But really good question. Jack_Daggett7 wants to know, can positioning yourself to the right or the left of the rubber affect your mechanics, velocity, etc.? So remember, mechanics can affect velocity, right? So the setup being that if you're like far right, far left, center cut, you got to think about like rotation and your brain's understanding of body's timing to complete the task. I have a video screening on this. I had a client that was struggling with early trunk rotation, but he was setting up like far glove side on the rubber. So his early trunk rotation was actually being initiated by his setup because his brain was like, yo, we gotta rotate early, because if we don't, we're gonna be late. We're gonna cut ourselves off. Always look at like rotation, especially within cervical rotation, like the eyes and what you're looking at, because unless there's a big drastic compensation over time, that then your compensation just becomes your movement pattern. But usually with like where your eyes are, your body is going to then compensate to make it where you know where you're expressing this energy. You can see where you're expressing this rotational energy, right? So yes, go to my YouTube. Setup on the rubber can influence mechanical breakdowns, I think is what it's called, but I could be wrong. Maybe if you just look in the mechanical screenings or analysis screenings folder, you'll find it. But to answer your question simply, Jack, yes, it can affect your mechanics. It's just there's just compensation. And remember, like, not all compensation is like bad, right? But it can influence a little bit different timing and a little bit different positioning. It's just about finding the right one. I think I use the setup, and you can probably read more about this in my ebook that is now finally released on my website, therobbyrowshow.com/ebooks, that I have a whole chapter on setup and some of the things that I'm looking for within setup. And the biggest thing with setup is influencing a solid initial move. And a lot of times within guys' setup is they don't quite accomplish that. They're in a more of an unathletic stance. They're positioned too cut off to where then the body can even establish some sense of tempo and rhythm. So always think about that, I would say. And think about another layer to this is your release point. What do you struggle with in terms of like your pitching? Is it, command, velocity, consistency, health? There's a lot of things there that we could take, peel back a layer and see, okay, you're struggling with consistency in the release shot. Well, let's set up in such a way that now when you're positioned at ball release with your fingers, it's more of center, like it's splitting home plate in half. So for righties, you're going to probably set up far left side. Lefties are going to be far right side, and position your hand where it's center. And there doesn't have to be a whole lot of manipulation going on in terms of how long you're holding onto the ball. You're maybe cutting the ball, thinking that you have to get glove side extension. Your ball's arm side elevated because you're under the ball, because you had to kind of early rotate and then push your shoulder up. There's a lot of things to it, and obviously it's hard to paint a picture, but yeah. Ebook. It's got a whole page on that. Good question.